Welcome to the Agatsu Physical Culture Podcast, and this is the first one that we're doing with a video. So Amir, my guest, you should be very honored because this is the first time people can actually hear what we're saying and watch me drink coffee at the same time. So welcome, Amir. I'm super excited to do this and to have you on because this is the third try. Right? The third time is the charm, is the expression in English, right? So we've tried unsuccessfully 2 times when we were actually both in the same room in California to do this. So now I'm in Montreal and you're over there in sunny California. And this is the time we're going to get it done. It's going to work.
And we're also more seasoned about, so it's going to be even better.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we've practiced now. So for people that are listening who don't know who you are, who maybe didn't make it out to the last Masters of Movement, where we got to introduce you to a bunch of people that train with me, just tell me real quick. We'll just discuss. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Israel, from Tel Aviv.
That's why you have this cool accent.
Exactly right.
Probably
but I'm working on my French accent.
Yeah, well, that's not too bad. So you're from Tel Aviv, and a lot of people know you from online. They've seen different video clips and different things. Probably the first thing they know about you, if I could say, is that you do capoeira. You teach capoeira, right? So how did you get involved in capoeira? How long have you been doing it?
I've done it. I started it in January '93, so you can calculate the years.
Yeah, it's a few years.
So many years. When I started it, it was my teacher who brought it to Israel, and then no one really knew what it was. I didn't know what it was, but I saw some flyer on a tree, and it intrigued me. It had all kind of things that kind of caught my attention, and so I wanted to try it and fell in love with it right away.
What about it caught your attention? What drew you to it? You say you saw the flyer and something kind of sparked. So what was that?
Well, capoeira is a very interesting art for the fact that it's part of a culture, Brazilian culture, but it has so many facets and aspects to it that you could look at those aspects and they're a completely different set of skills. They've been put together under a certain umbrella of this art and done in a very unique form. But it's a martial art that has dance in it, music, singing, acrobatics, and everything has its own unique way of doing it.
And were you an athletic guy before you were drawn to capoeira? So always kind of into moving around and trying different things?
Truth is that I actually used to hate sports. And I never exercised, and my dad used to work out and go swim and to the gym, and he'd take me and my sister and brother to jog in the park, and they would jog, and I'd be sitting and waiting for them to finish. Never liked exercise, and I kind of got slowly into enjoying it, actually from a yoga practice and more spiritual place. At age of 15, I kind of researched, into different religion and Buddhism, stuff like that, and then I found a friend and we were practicing meditation and the different cleansings and enema and all this fun stuff. And then little by little I started to kind of find the physical aspect of it, control your mind, control your body. And so my first really step into connecting to the body was more through stretches and different yoga positions and stuff like that, and opening up my joint.
So a perfect martial art for you, of course, something like capoeira, which has this flexibility, this mobility, this real movement and flow to it. So I can see the appeal.
Yeah, I actually, growing up, my parents put me in judo and karate and different music instruments. So I did try a lot of these things, but nothing really caught me. Each one I did for a few months, so nothing that I can say I got to any level beyond complete beginner. But then capoeira, the first thing that got me was definitely the emphasis on flexibility, which was missing in the different karate forms that I tried, or they didn't put the emphasis, and that really had me. But then something that you also see a lot in capoeira, and I see it also outside of capoeira, is people come for one reason, and then they discover a whole different reason, and eventually you constantly finding new and newer layer. And I think I find that also in a physical practice. Someone come and is maybe obese, so he come and he train for a while, he managed to lose weight, and so now we feel like, okay, now I can lead a happy and fulfilling life. Now we got to like a satisfying maybe level of weight, but now suddenly that he rediscover his body, suddenly like, oh, now I can learn how to do this, and now I can learn. So then maybe get into more specific type of skill, and then within the skill there'll be different levels. So every time you hit, you understand a certain level of basics. Then on top of those basics, you can build another layer of functionality. And when you get that level, on top of that, there's a new level. And as long as the level is really understood in a way that is clear enough, sometimes the basics are not being applied in a way that you can really build on top. So maybe you can play with some basics, but you didn't really understand them, so you can get stuck in there forever. But as long as I think you have a good enough foundation, if it's your own sound research that you can do and really get quality in your own studies, or if it's someone else that comes and introduces well enough level of foundation, then you can build on top of that, then the progress is lasting. And so in Capoeira you see that. I enjoy flexibility, but after very quickly I really enjoyed the social aspect. That was the second thing that got me in my life. And I was a decent student, but I never really liked the socialness or what I saw human being, communicating, interacting. For me growing up, it'd be like people older was like, they wouldn't really interact with younger people. There were all these separation things that I saw. And in Capoeira, it was just everyone was with everyone, and you got to interact with people that in normal life you would never even meet. So something that made perfect sense to me, and that was like an ideal outlook into a perfect society. There was so much interaction with every class. We would go and open a table at a restaurant and eat, and the restaurant knew us every single time. And then traveling the world, everywhere I went, everyone was so helpful and were like offering me places to stay and places to work if I wanted to, just because I was in Capoeira.
Sure, so it's you enter like a tribe, right? And there's always different tribes.
Yeah.
I've experienced the same thing in different martial arts. Even now, circus training, I really feel it like a family, like also another type of tribe.
Yeah, see that in different places. But I think it's not just a tribe. This is a culture. This is something, when I went to Brazil, it was similar. I went to people, and not even Capoeira. There's something about the Brazilian culture that is very inviting, very big heart. And I went to families and people that didn't do Capoeira, and they have nothing, empty fridge, maybe one little glass of milk there. When I came there, they offer that to me. There's something about this culture, and you see it in Capoeira a lot, that is very different than other culture. And many times I feel like also with Western culture, they have harder time to understand those things. There's something Western culture very materialistic, and people almost they don't believe it. They when they see this kind of openness that the people from other cultures have, it's hard for people to believe if this person really so open. Why, or what do they want from me, or not feeling comfortable being so close. There's something very everyone takes his space, in Western culture. So that's something that Brazilian culture. So Capoeira is something very unique and special for me.
And you touched on something really important. Talking about layering and basics and that foundation that Capoeira gave you, and the importance of a foundation, a really solid foundation, because then it allows you to really explore and look at different things. I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, because in fitness, especially in the fitness world online, people love to be, form Nazis, and you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong. And for me, I don't care how someone does something. Really, it doesn't affect my life in any way. I'm going to be here drinking my coffee and living my life. But when I get passionate about it, if somebody asks me directly, like, hey, should I do this? I always try to tell them, you should do the thing that gives you back the most and gives you the most options. That's why I want to look and find somebody to show me something that has depth, because with that depth I can build. So you started to build your foundation. I know, from our conversations, I know that you started to build it with Capoeira and of course with yoga and, Eastern philosophy. And then at some point you get interested in gymnastics as well as a complement. How did you find the gymnastics, and what do you think it brought to what you were doing with Capoeira?
So that's another interesting actually point, and you know, gymnastics is actually a more narrow way to look at really what happened.
Yeah.
If I try to describe the process I went through, is in capoeira, you know, we do a lot of things and we have the unique take on it, but I don't ever felt that capoeira was the most efficient, best martial art, or the best dancers, or the best acrobats. You do find some good martial artists there, and you find some good acrobats and good dancers and good musicians. But I actually went and, you know, right from the start, I would always involve with other martial arts. So I would still go and drop by some karate class and try to test my capoeira against it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, kung fu class, I'd drop in and be like doing their class, respectful. Then at the end, you know, trying to use what they taught me to do the sparring, and then I'll be like, can I try to do what I do if it's okay? You know, so I tried it and I tried to see how good is it as a martial art,
Mm-hmm.
or when I did music, so I went and I found a Cuban percussionist. I took a few classes because they're a little bit better, the percussion better, cleaner form. Capoeira, the technique is not always so good, you know, it's like a street kind of.
Yeah.
So the quality, many times in capoeira that you find there, many times the quality would hold back the practitioner from actually performing better in his art. I've worked with capoeirists that come to me and I clean up their form and they can do better because of concepts I took from gymnastics, from martial art, from different, you know, from music. So I tried, you know, each one of these aspects of capoeira. I tried to go outside of capoeira to find how to better it. So I was very comfortable also being outside of capoeira, and you know that's how I later got into circus arts and stuff that interested me as a person, regardless of capoeira. So gymnastics was one of those things, and I always really enjoyed, and I think that it also put me in a little bit more than other martial arts or you know dance. I took ballet, I took jazz, I performed doing jazz on TV. I've done a lot of these things separately to better what I do within the capoeira. But gymnastics, I felt like it's an art that is go very very deep. You know, funny. I have a friend. He's a gymnast, and he say gymnastics is the mother of all sports.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we call it. And it's interesting, you know, to look at it because the way they develop their strength and their ability to move. Of course, the performance level that you see it's in acrobatics. These are the best acrobats. But there's a lot of reasons behind it, and it works on a very you know scientific level and way, the way that he works with the body, that you know when you get a good coach that really understand what's important and how to build a performer, it's quite you know optimal. I mean everything is specific. Of course, he's building a gymnast, but you see gymnasts translate the art to become dancers, to become whatever they want to do. They have very high awareness of the body, so obviously that's a very good preparation for you know foundation for life. I find.
Sure. Yeah. For anything, and it still has its limitations, especially if somebody is doing it in terms of the sport of gymnastics. They're going to approach things from that perspective, and it's nice, like you say, to kind of look everywhere, to go to dance for different ways to move, to go to martial arts, to look
and
at
the
everything.
gymnasts, they have their limitations. I mean, on the most part, if you take a gymnast that is a proper gymnast, he cannot really function outside of the gym. They need the bouncy floor with all the rebound. They crush their bones if they fight on concrete. So even to translate that to real world, there's a process that they need to go to where, you know, if you see gymnasts become a stunt person or become a parkour guy, they translate that skill. So there is some work.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find is interesting. I mean, we met a few years ago by chance when I was teaching a seminar, and you were attending a seminar right next that was happening simultaneously. And so we Facebook friended each other, and then I kept noticing you were actually, by coincidence, you kept popping up in my feed, and I kept looking at different videos and different things you were doing, and I was just thinking to myself, shit, this guy can really move, you know, this is cool. And it was just always in the back of my mind. I would see your stuff. And then when we had, you know, the idea to have a Masters of Movement event in LA, one of the reasons that I thought of you and asking you to teach was not just because this capoeira stuff you were doing was, you know, really interesting and is really interesting, but because I saw in what you were doing that you were so good in so many different areas. And for me, that's what I always find exciting, you know, in my practice, to try to do different things. With my students, I try to expose them to different things. Because I think it makes people, in terms of being a generalist, it makes you a better generalist, obviously. And it's great to see people that are highly competent in so many different areas having fun with them. And like I joked when you were at the Masters of Movement last year. I joked to people when they said, "Oh, who's this Amir guy?" I said, "Oh, well, the Amir guy could actually teach all of the different events that that we're doing, but he's going to be teaching you capoeira." And they were like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, really. He could be the gymnastics coach if we wanted, or he could be the hand balancing coach if we wanted, or he's going to be the capoeira guy just because we had to narrow down the focus," um, which I thought was really cool. And so it was a great example to everyone. And then also, I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, I didn't know what you were going to do with capoeira, but what you did, which I thought was great and brilliant, was you taught a lot of the people there were trainers, not everyone, but a lot. But you taught them capoeira in a way without teaching them capoeira, which to me was super cool. And I think maybe for people that are listening, I know a lot of people these days are getting excited by gymnastics. They're getting excited by capoeira. They're seeing the movement, the flow. Um, but I don't think they're maybe necessarily 100% sure like what they should do. Should they start all of a sudden and devote time and become a capoeista and start training that 100%? Do they become gymnasts? Do they people? I think they're kind of a little bit like looking at the way people are moving, maybe wanting some of that for themselves. And I think it was a great inspiration what you gave at Masters of Movement is you showed that there's some concepts in, for example, capoeira, on different ways of approaching movement, different ways of approaching training, and you can really look at how they approach it in that system and start to see how it could fit maybe with what you're currently doing, which was really cool. Yeah, so I think like, what do you think maybe some of the big takeaways are from capoeira that can improve just everyone's training?
So I think capoeira, because it's a way of life, and it's such a rich art.
Hmm.
It has so many things that for me I kind of look and distill out of it, and with time I keep finding more and more. It's like it has its own living entity that I can just take. Let me take this, let me take that, and I can make it for people that are not capoeirista to also enjoy without necessarily the need to become a capoeirista. Because I know nowadays people, there's all this movement of people that want to take things from gymnastics, from capoeira, from balancing, and put them together and basically create themselves and not really being devoted to one way, which is okay because people get results, and why not?
Hmm.
That's something that already happened in my generation. It's funny. Before my generation, there was the classic approach where you do capoeira, you do capoeira. If you
Yeah.
do boxing, you do boxing. You don't mix those things. Each one is different.
Hmm.
No, you do taekwondo. And then when I started to get into it, I kind of felt like they started to kind of open up. People started to really look outside. They'd be like, okay, I do kung fu, but what capoeira I have? Or I do this, what is that? And they would
Sure.
start to kind of mix. And then also there was the time I think the mixed martial art came a few years after that, where what you see is in today UFC and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I felt like it really started before the actual performance and all the Vegas fight. You could already sense that with the practitioners of martial art. They were looking outside. They weren't just staying in their discipline, which was already a change. And now you see that get even bigger, where people are not even calling themselves, that's funny. When I started capoeira, a friend of mine, there's a guy from Brazil who was insane acrobat in capoeira, and he do all the tumbling passes, back handspring, back double twist, continuous
Hmm.
tumble. And people look at him and be like, "Oh, you do gymnastics?" And be like, "No, I don't know gymnastics. I do capoeira." But he do better than gymnasts.
Right.
So but he stay loyal to capoeira.
Yeah.
But so I feel like that kind of grow, and it's interesting, and you see all kind of interesting people bringing all kind of things to the table that are new, and new mixes and new ways of expression, which is it's nice to see also how available this get. But sometimes a lot of I'm talking to other coaches that've been there for a while, and you see that there's also sense that a lot of things also are being lost, and
Yes.
the tradition and a lot of the original way that had value to them. I mean, some things, being closed-minded, obviously that proved itself to be a wrong approach, because mixed martial art, that the fact that they can throw punches and kicks and also know jiu-jitsu on the floor makes them superior to someone who only know how to be on the floor, but they need to take a whole bunch of punches in the face. So, it shows that was a better approach. So, being closed-minded was not really working, but still, there might have been some qualities there that are not being lost. So I feel like those things also have um, a value, but more specifically to the way that I teach and the way that I do it differently. If I approach people that come from the fitness industry or
Yeah.
from movement, or whatever, the more general industry, and where I teach classes that are proper capoeira. So, and what you just said, what I did in a seminar, which is true, I distill some qualities and make it so I get people tools. Even though they don't know what capoeira is, but they can use a lot of capoeira ways and use it to develop specific things, whether if it was explosive ability or different things that you can develop with capoeira tools as an option, and also to see it as itself. Maybe you can use other ways to use expressive ability. So, but I was doing it with capoeira. But something that was very interesting, a couple of weeks ago, I just gave a 5-day intensive, and I had 10 blocks. It was 5 days, but each morning we had 2-hour blocks.
Right.
We had 2 of them in the morning, and then we had the classes in the evening. And something that I did, these people actually were not capoeiristas, but they were interested in a lot of material from capoeira, so I kind of built the actual intensive around their wishes, and I put the skeleton of my fundamental of movement system, really explaining, going deep. But specifically what I did with capoeira, which was similar to what I did at the Master of Movement, is I gave them blocks of capoeira material separate from capoeira, like I did with you.
Right.
I think in the Master of Movement I gave 3 of those blocks, but over there were like 6 or 7 different blocks. But then in the evening they came to take a capoeira class, and I wasn't trying to make capoeirista out of them, but I feel, and that's something that I feel like people can also do with gymnastics or with hand balancing or circus arts, is I brought them to, I gave them a distilled information, but I also brought them to the real place where capoeira is really happening.
That's awesome, yeah.
You see, okay, so there's music to it. Like, I didn't do music with them in the intensive, it wasn't part, but suddenly they saw there was music, so they see they took the movement quality that they wanted to implement to the practice, but what they missed was there's a martial art aspect, and that's very fundamental in capoeira. So the same movement we practice for connecting and doing stuff for movement and acrobatic way, and ability to express and free yourself in your movement, now I put it in the context of fight. How is this the same exact move can have a whole different meaning, and how can you use them to defend yourself and use them as escape and attack as opposed to transition between an acrobatic. So that gives, one thing is a whole different perception, and you see that the same thing can be used in many different ways.
Yeah.
And also understanding where it came from. I see sometimes dancers and they go on the stage and they do some capoeira, handstand catching the leg or some really flippy and it's kind of capoeira stuff.
Right.
And I can see if this person is just a dancer that only can do this trick, or if this person is a dancer that knew capoeira and now this trick has a different value, because I can see the awareness in his body, the way he performed this trick. Does he really understand the trick, or can he just perform it but not really understand it? And there's a difference. And even the audience, they don't know capoeira and they see this performer, there's something in the subconscious they can see how deep this person have meaning behind his practice.
Sure.
Or his practice is more shallow. Yeah, I can move and I'm a great dancer, and look, I can do this move, but it's more on the surface. I'm not really deep inside of my practice. So that's something that I see in capoeira, but also in gymnastics or in other forms. If you're a circus performer, when you go on a stage, you have a different presence than if you can just play with something and look, I can do this trick,
right,
but I don't really understand what else this trick has, because everything is a foundation.
That's what I was about to say. It leads us right back to the importance of that foundation and getting depth. And I think you touch on, a couple things that are really important, and especially for people now, because we have access to so much information, we see so many different types of training, we want maybe different elements because, just like that poster that you saw of capoeira, something catches our eye, it's appealing to us, and it's great to be open-minded and go for that thing and be attracted to that thing. But I think there's a danger also, because if we just try to get that thing in isolation from whatever system it comes from, and don't try to make a real honest effort at really looking at the entirety of the system, without those basics and knowledge of that system, we're not sure exactly how to pick what we want from it. We don't know the fundamentals that build up to that movement. The easiest example I can think of for myself, because I travel to a lot of CrossFits and giving kettlebell seminars and joint mobility seminars around the world. I'm in a lot of those gyms, and these are people that are passionate about cross training. I often see them working on handstands, which is something that both of us love. But when I see them working on it, more often than not, I see there's not a depth of practice. And it's not from a lack of desire. It's from a lack of understanding. It's as though they said, "Hey, that's a really cool move. I want to get that move." But they didn't look at any of the basics, for example, in the circus approach or in the approach just from gymnastics. They didn't take the building blocks, learning how to fall, learning how to cartwheel so that you have a good escape, so that you're, comfortable. They don't know the hollow body position. They don't know any of the basics building up. So I think what you touched upon, about people being open-minded is really important. And also, maybe even further, like you said, like we have to have the passion, we have to have the desire to want to have a deep practice and to look, So maybe I'm not going to necessarily become a capoeista and I want maybe a couple of those cool moves, but I should look, I should go see what the real thing is and understand what builds up to those moves and how important that is, I think it's making this kind of time very exciting to be in terms of movement because, everything's on the table. You before, to learn something, you had to really travel, you had to work hard. It was hard to find anybody with that information that you were looking for. Now it's easy. People can train with you online, right? It's like I can reach out to Amir and go, "Hey, I saw this podcast. I want to train with you. I want to be able to do the stuff you do." They can start, but because we have that access, we have to do a lot of research ourselves, and we have to really know what it is we want. Why do we want the handstand? I know, like, we both love hand balancing. You've been doing it for a while. That's why I asked you to come to the next Masters of Movement, and you're going to teach hand balancing this year. Have you seen a big increase in people wanting to come to you, not just for capoeira and gymnastic stuff, but also in particular desire to learn hand balancing, levers, handstands, things like that?
Yeah, you see it everywhere now. Definitely it's growing fast.
Why do you think there's so much interest now in hand balancing? Why do you think it's growing, or was it always there? People just love to stand on their hands. I don't know.
Actually, I see a lot of growing in all the circus arts. I mean, even stuff like acro yoga, which is kind of like, I feel like it can get quite complex, but it's something very inviting. The beginning is pretty simple and anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Or some things like handstand, it's a little more challenging right from the start. A lot of people, it's more frustrating. You're not going to succeed.
Right.
So I see a lot of expansion in all these fields, and more people have been drawn into that. Great, particularly for handstand, I feel like it's a very important foundation to have. If you want to do anything body weight, you should have a handstand, and the handstand can go a long way. Like when I see someone how good the handstand is, I can tell how good probably the movement ability going to be. Acrobatic wise, if they want to be acrobats, then we always try to be on our hand and upside down. So if you have the control to stack your body on your hand, the more strength you have, they can go into a better alignment and understanding. The more it'll be easy for you to pick up move that are acrobatic type move on the floor. Mm-hmm. So that's, I feel, a very basic fundamental skill to have if you want to do acrobatics type of movement.
Yeah.
So I like that for that because I do a lot of those in capoeira, and I feel like that makes them super easy. I can just fly myself in the air off the floor, no problem.
Well, we're looking forward. I'm looking forward for sure to Masters of Movement in March because you're going to work with the group on handstand basics. And last time I was out in LA, I got to come out to one of your handstand classes, so I got to see a bit of the approach. And what's great is that you work those fundamentals, you work that line, and you try to build that foundation that gives everyone the most options, right? I think people, they get used to seeing either just like this straight handstand, or now everyone's kind of looking at the one arm as some kind of holy grail, but it goes deeper, like seeing you do a hollow back and seeing that flexibility in the hold. When you look at it, you can think to yourself, wow, that's, to do that, I'm going to need to work on this, this, and this. And when I can do that, that's really what I'm showing. I'm showing that, hey, I open my shoulders. Hey, I have like all these different attributes, and that's the exciting thing.
Translate.
Yeah, it translates over. Yeah.
Like for me, I talk about capoeira, but they also translate, of course, to gymnastics and the whole body, the position, that everything in gymnastics is whole body. So that's a certain type of strength and understanding how to control your body in space and not to let go of the position. We use it for levers, for everything, for
Yeah, and
flips.
to me, it's exciting when people can get so much out of their training because then you have a practice that gives you, okay, it's a nice appearance. That's great. Everyone likes that. But also, you have a practice that, is deep. It brings you all kinds of different things, right? It helps you move better. It helps you feel better. It helps you look better. Helps you act better. It helps you in a lot of different ways by exposing yourself to these different ways of moving around. In the Instagram generation, I always question everyone's motives when they tell me I want to learn a one-arm lever. My question always is why, and usually I think it's just to show off, which is okay, but kind of boring after a while. After you get your all the likes that you need on the photo, what's left? So I think like when I'm out in LA and we see each other, the great thing is to be able to go to the Santa Monica Pier to train. Like last time we did hand balancing and some man, you were playing on your new canes. You were like a kid, all excited, and to be there and to train and to talk to other people and to just play and feel good, and then to go for go surfing and just to be able to move and have a day like that and to have days like that. That's really the gift of a good practice, you know. And I think
Yeah,
that's more interesting reason to train than anything else, any other show off move.
true. Just to be able to live in our body and enjoy it. Enjoy to see some people out there, and now the obesity is so growing, and people are so limited in their ability to move and enjoy their body. Not talking about health risks and all this kind of stuff that you see out there. That people need to do it because they're shortening their lives and life quality and being miserable and not be able to look at yourself in the mirror without a shirt and have a smile on the face. So you're looking at that as a contrast, and that type of lifestyle is also so dependent on our Western way of living. We're so dependent on this in, culture that we created here that it's our imagination. We like my best friend was just telling me she looked at the birds and she's thinking, oh, we need to work so hard. How come they don't? And I'm like, we don't either. We build this. We're miserable in it, but it's all fake. There's
Yeah.
nothing. Now you see the economy is crashing all over, and you're thinking, well, being back to nature, connected with our body, being true to ourselves, and take this civilization where giving it the right place and not depending on it for to be alive.
Yeah, it's amazing what a deep practice can bring to people, and that's why I think it's great, for people to be exposed to teachers like yourself, and to see, to, like you said, keep an open mind, to look and find different ways to move, different things to practice. Not everything is for everyone. There's certain things that people are drawn to. Like you said, as a kid, you played around with a few different things, and when it clicks, it clicks.
Right.
For people, I'm going to put a link to this to your website underneath, so the fundamentals of movement. People can check you out. They can find you, of course, on Facebook. I'll put a link to your profile so they can stalk. I mean, they can find you and talk to you there because you do online training, and of course, you do workshops, you do intensives. There's seminars everywhere. People that want to catch you in March, you will be teaching for 5 days at Agatsu Masters of Movement. So it's a training week. For those of you who don't know, that's unlike any other, where we have multiple teachers that are all teaching from different movement disciplines over 5 days. And what I think amazing about those events is that people really get time with the instructors. Unlike a short seminar where it's very quick, and you get maybe exposed to a little bit from someone's perspective. Here they can see you day in and day out, and they can really start to pick your brain. So if like on Monday you introduce some concepts, they have a few days for it to roll around in their head. And then on Thursday they can come back and say, Amir, I was thinking about what you said Monday, and they can really start to understand and develop an idea of where a teacher is coming from or where a system is coming from. So I'm looking forward to training with you there, of course, and I'm coming out to go surfing in December. So, so get your board ready. We're gonna go, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and of course handstands.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, pleasure.